Hi chums. I was asked recently, how do you build your raised beds? So I've got a wee sequence going here for how I do them, and I'll explain what happens. I use scaffold planks because they're free from a friend of mine, and I use 3 by 3 corner posts, and I make those a foot long, and then I, well, that one there's not a foot long, but what happens is when you cut an 8 foot long post, I'm going to head over to the greenhouse a second to get something here. When you cut an 8 foot long post, it means that you don't get 8 12 foot sections, you get 7 12 foot sections and a 9 foot section, because the prices or the measurements are just arbitrary, really, you know. So, what do you call it? Uh, those ones are left over. I use in these small beds because I lower the bed 3 inches into the ground on the corners just, and you can see the space under the bed there. Put that under. You can see the space under the bed now. Most of you know I've got sort of back issues going here, so how do I lift these boxes to put the beds in? Well, it's very simple. What I do is I mark where the post touches the ground, and then I just lift the bed up on the truck, and I can work at that space on that little mark. I'm talking to my own light here. On that little mark there where the post is sitting, I dig that out and then just lower the bed down again, and that's it, done. Now spacing between these beds is 34.5 inches. I arrived at that because I kneel beside the beds and I set the thing up. I knelt down and my wife measured to where my feet came to, and it was 34.5 inches. So they're about 34 inches, they're 34.5 inches apart. That also works out well because it gives, when landscape fabric comes in 6 foot rolls, which are doubled over, so one strip is 3 foot wide, and I put the landscape fabric down doubled up so that it gives a better coverage. So that's how I end up with that particular measurement. To save me measuring, I went on the internet for 3 or 4 weeks to work out how to measure between the beds without having to worry, and eventually I came up with this. Okay, and that's 34.5 inches long. Now to you it might look like two bits of stick nailed together, but to me it's a precision instrument. Okay, enough of rubbish, go on here. Next step is newspapers. I put it in newspapers along the edge, and then you soak the newspapers really well and push them into the corners so that you're stopping any weeds coming up the side. And you can't really put too much water on this because it will absorb an awful lot, and you don't want the cardboard to absorb water from the compost you put in. The next stage is this, and I'll do a bit of pointing here. The first layer I put in is stuff called soil improver, and that's it there. It's basically just composted bark and greens and stuff. It's a pretty rough mix. There's not enough, no nutrient in it really, but it does open up soil nicely. And then I also use potting compost, which is just basically that. Now, the problem with potting compost is that there's no body in it and it doesn't have a lot of nutrients. It's only good for about 6 weeks. So you can see the little dots in there. That's grow more, and I put some grow more in. Then I put a layer of compost on top, and I mix the compost and the soil improver. Then I put another layer of soil improver in, mix that up, and then the final layer is compost, and I give it a wee tiny mix as well. So that's basically how I go about making the beds. It's very simple. You can use anything you want to hold beds up because the soil doesn't matter, doesn't care what's holding it, the plants don't care. I mean, John Kohler, growingyourgreens.com, his beds are beautiful, but my plants don't know that, so they can't be jealous. So anything at all that you have that will hold soil back can be used as beds. If you look over here, those beds there are made with Canadian red cedar. There's 420 feet of 6x1s and 96 feet of 2x2s, and that cost me just less than $1,000 US 3 years ago. That is extremely expensive wood for here. Now it does hold up in the rain and stuff, but it's not worth it, you know. But at that time I was doing it, I hadn't a clue, and I was looking for the best stuff, and I ended up paying for the best stuff. So people, and I watch the American guys doing these raised beds, and red cedar's basically rubbish and crap. It's the cheapest wood you can get. but it's basically an exotic here. So I'm on the scaffold planks now, and only because I get them for nothing. Um, on this back issue thing, I've told you about this before, and I'm going to tell you a bit more about it. I have had ankylosing spondylitis for about 35 years since I was a teenager. That's a disease where the spine becomes fused because of inflammation, and the ligaments become fused, and then your spine goes solid. It's the same with your neck and your hips. At the moment, my neck is pretty well fused. My spine's fused right down both sides, and my hips are pretty bad too as well. My ribs are also fused as well. Then I managed very well for 30 years. I managed really well. I was able to work on that. And then 6 years ago, I got hit with psoriatic arthritis. That's a very aggressive form of arthritis associated with psoriasis. And there's 6 different types of that, and I got all 6. So what do you call it? I can't get my lotto numbers up, but I can get 6 different types of the one arthritis. So that really knocked me for 6. So then that's under control now almost, and the next thing I heard was I got an MRI done last year, and I've discovered now I have severe bone density problems. This is a cruel irony of ankylosing spondylitis. It robs calcium from the spine to fuse the spine, and then leaves you with osteoporosis. So they told me that after 30 years, I now have the spine of a woman in her 90s who has had untreated, undiagnosed severe osteoporosis since she was in her early teens. So I'm in pretty bad shape. Um, so that's why I'm sort of working the way I do. I'm also telling that because I had a guy here recently who said to me, I don't think you're as bad as you're letting on. Now, I didn't know if that was a compliment to say you've done well considering the state you're in, or if he was saying you're a bit of a fraud, Brendan, because you couldn't do all this work in the state you're in. And it kind of hurt me. But the other thing I'm going to do with this video is I'm going to put tags on for ankylosing spondylitis because there's an awful lot of negativity associated with it. It's a very painful disease. I'll tell you how painful it is. When I did that MRI, they discovered I have broken my back twice, and my neck's been broken 3 times, and most of my ribs are broken. And I didn't even know that happened. I thought when those things happened that the ankylosing spondylitis had just flared up a wee bit, and I just put up with it. And now I've got all these healed fractures from multiple situations where I broke bones. That can happen from sneezing. If you know anybody with ankylosing spondylitis, ask them what it's like to sneeze, and they'll just go white. It's the most terrifying thing, and I have broken ribs sneezing. So anybody watching this who isn't aware of it or who has ankylosing spondylitis, um, you can do stuff. Ankylosing spondylitis isn't the end of the world. It just means that you have to do things differently, but you don't stop doing things. So it takes me a long time to get this work done. I mean, you're looking at 3 years work in these beds, and there's 3 more put in this week with my wife helping me. So what do you call it? Slow, steady progress. But the most important thing for people with ankylosing spondylitis is you must keep moving, because once you fuse, you cannot get the movement back again. It's gone forever. So that's enough on me and my illnesses. I'll not be talking about that again. But that guy kind of annoyed me last week when he sort of implied that I was sort of acting like a fraud and pretending I was ill. So people can decide for themselves whether I'm sick or not, or whether I've got difficulties or not. So anyway, that's that done. Um, I was going to give a shout out to somebody and I've forgotten who. Oh yes, Alistair, my friend Alistair up in Larne. Alistair, here's the latest bit of the project. I hope you enjoy it, and I'm expecting to see raised beds in that wonderful, huge garden you have up in Larne. All right, okay, folks, that'll do. There's another video coming up later on the greenhouse, so I'll do that then. I'm sorry I bored you with all the medical stuff, but I'm feeling a bit sort of pissed off at the moment about that. So sorry, curse, sorry, bye. Shouldn't have done that. Okay then. All the best. Bye bye. Beautiful day here. And I'll stop talking for a second. You might hear the birds. Isn't that lovely? Right. Okay. Bye bye.